This is another one where I just sort of felt like it doesn't really have, it's not that it's so terrible or anything, but it just doesn't, the light doesn't make sense. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm getting all this light from up here and it could be cool. That's fine. I'd argue it's more gray than anything, you know, and then you could really pump some of the, then you got this over here. So now I got a real excuse to put some warmth in here and start to pop. Like this would be pretty easy to pop. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So would you like tone that light like to a more like blue or purple color?
No, I do that.
Mm.
Okay then.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
looks a lot better.
Yeah.
And then I have an excuse to come in here and go like here, I put a few reflected things back here. And then I also saturated up a little bit of the reflected color he had in there because that's closer. Okay. I gave this more of a point of view from a temperature perspective. Now I could have gone cooler, but I just decided to go warmer, right? And then came over here. And if you notice over here, I cooled it off and I cooled it off all in here, but it's not like screaming cooled off. It's just cooled off, right?
Mhm.
So now I'm starting to get a little bit of color pop. And then I could come in here and, then, as I worked into it, I can come in here and start to play with, can I get a little more of this? That's not good. I need a really hot light or something here. Where can I put a little more of this warmth? But I'm going to kind of pop it. I probably let the focal point live here where it already is now. But I could build up a few of these values down in here and pop a little bit of that warmth and a little bit of that cool, and I'm out, right? Just adding this little cool here in this wall right there helped a lot because it needed that relief from all the warmth. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then also, and I don't want it too much. I might even pull it back a little more. I might find an excuse to put something over on the other side of this boat, maybe. And then again, I pump the colors a little more here in the foreground and add a little more of a shine on there because instead of doing, what does everybody do here? Here's what everybody would do. And by the way, I just saw Nathan Fowkes talking about this too, which is, I just like it when I see somebody else talking about it besides me. This is what everybody would do.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
They'd make this a very dark value. All this out here would become a mid and then everything back there. That's what everybody would do right there. Am I wrong?
Nope,
No.
you are not wrong.
And what's bothering me about that is that, and that's what he was talking about, by the way. I just saw it today, actually. And I've been complaining about this forever. And by the way, it's not a bad thing to learn. Hey, dark value, then, then mid and then light. Okay. And look, boom, you get atmosphere. Okay. Now that's that idea. Now let's explore it in multiple levels of complexity and how other ways can we create atmosphere and depth. I think that's a good way to start and say, here's how you talk about this and let's start this discussion. I think it's great for that. But then I see students doing it over and over and over and over and over and over and over. And then they don't work into the value. So everything looks like stage flats, plywood. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So another way you could do this, and I could even, I could darken this up and pull it back and still get some color in there, and that's fine. It's not that it's a bad solution. Or I can go the other way and I go, this is very close to me. It's got some value in it, but instead of pushing just dark value, I'm going to pull the saturation levels of the colors up a little bit. Why? Because it's close to me in a misty environment. That's the closest thing to me. So I can justify that getting more saturated. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
This is seriously the conversation I've needed for like 4 years.
A lot of people have. It's okay. Here's what I want you guys to start thinking about. Whenever you're learning something, okay, because I think a lot of those things are great learning tools, okay? I don't think they're bad teaching tools at all. But what I don't want you to do, I want you to understand that don't let those things become formulaic and don't let those things be your always go-to solution, and then find other ways to solve these problems. Also, whenever you're learning anything, immediately you should be learning how to use that in your actual work. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, okay. Because when I had teachers that did that, where I go, hey, I'm doing this thing and I'm trying to, you got something in your head, and they would do something like that where they go, you can go black. I go, I don't want to do that here. I want to do something different. I'm trying to get a vibrant painting here. Well, and then finally you go, oh, you don't know. Okay, you don't know. That's fine. But everything you learn has to work with your work and go into the real world. Does that make sense? Problem
Yeah.
solving. It's problem solving. Okay. So, anyway, so we just kind of pump it up a little bit. Yeah. And then even here, now here, and I don't know if this will work here, but we'll see. Like with something like this blue, like sometimes I'm not going to, so what is everybody going to do? That's got a lot of light. So I'm going to go to my blue. I'm going to add some light, white, which isn't bad. It's fine. And sometimes you can just go in and maybe just go to a more vibrant blue and see how that works a little better.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little more subtle. Yeah, like that. And now, why do I do that? Because I want to keep vibrancy in my color. What people don't realize is that when you add value or when you add white to a color, people think it's making it brighter. It's making it brighter in the sense of value, but it's actually killing the saturation. Okay, you're graying it. So when you're trying to bring that color, so if I want to keep my paintings vibrant, sometimes I look for places where instead of going to white, I go to a more saturated. I've thrown down, so whoever painted this already threw down the blue. It's already a little bit reduced. So if I hit it with a very saturated version of that blue, it's going to look like light hitting it, like light hitting blue and vibrant, giving that more vibrant blue because the light's hitting it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I do it
Yeah.
with red. I do it with red all the time. Okay. Blue, wherever I see I can do it because I'm going, I don't want my paintings to get chalky. I want them to stay vibrant and colorful. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, look, just by popping that a little bit, see how it pulled it forward a little bit?
Mm-hmm.
So, actually it made a big difference because, and the reason I like that is it's now tying back to this thing here. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So this and this aren't that far from each other. I want to look, and now this is actually here in the midground. Fold this forward a little bit because all this mist back here, everything back there is going to get reduced. So pulling a little bit of that saturation and vibrancy into the foreground, I can do that because it's coming out of mist. And now that's probably about all I do there because now that I look at it, it's all I need. Okay. It's put those two elements kind of forward. And it's sort of also stair-stepping my eye into that. Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then you got a little bit of pop, a little cool back there, and that's it. That's probably all I do to it. Because after a while, you're just going to start overworking it. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, this has changed my life.
Good. And then here, no, there's no color here. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's pretty gray.
It's not a great painting to begin with, but it's like, why? How would you not think of?
It just feels like when they went to the darker shadows, they just dragged the value bar.
They probably did.
I mean, at one point I did that, and then
Well,
it
all of
didn't
us
really
did.
work out.
All of us have been through this. I'm not saying. Did anybody ever spring fully formed? I don't think so. Hang on, I haven't got this right yet. But all I'm saying, oops, what happened? That was weird. What did I
You
do?
click off of Photoshop, or
Yeah.
did it crash?
No, I hit some button or something. That's weird. It's not really letting me. All I'm saying is I would get some warmth on these things. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, why
Yeah.
is there no color in this? And I don't like that yet, but and then there's just so much. Look at the indication of water. Look at this stupid flamingo. I mean, it's just a bunch of stuff. This isn't worth doing a work over. It's just not that good. But my main point is it'd be very easy to, number one, these stones should have a lot of color in them. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like if we just go, let's see. And then I can push this. Let's just do a wash because that's probably how I do it in reality. And no, I'm not going to leave it that vibrant. And then I come in here and I go, now I'd have to get some cools in here. Actually, I'm gonna do that on another layer. Because, you know, there could be some warm, you know, these stones would probably be warm, so I can justify quite a bit of warm in there. But I want to cool some of them off. Because why? When you see these stones, they're not all the same color, right? And you see, you can just do that and it helps. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then I can come in here and I can go, well, there's a lot of this. So, you know, why am I not getting, you know, maybe really subtly, why am I not getting a little bit of that surface, you know, that surface reflection you get on things? You guys know what I'm talking about? Like in a pool?
Yeah, that crazy cool reflection from the waves.
Yeah. And, you know, this could be pretty cool, like a pretty cool value. I just picked it up from the water and I could play with it. And then, you know, you get a little pop wherever they overlap, you know, and then I just dial that in, you know, and then I get some warmth up here. And just doing this in the stone makes a huge difference. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes a huge difference and it takes 2 minutes, you know? But what is it? It's not about like that it's so laborious to do. It's just the knowledge of how this works. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I keep going back to, like Benton saying that. Well, it's because apparently nobody's giving you this knowledge, which isn't that difficult to comprehend at this point, is it?
No, not at all.
I mean,
Yeah.
because you have enough background where you guys know, like, oh yeah, that totally makes sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I was at the zoo last Friday, and then this kid was watching me do some gouache painting, and then he was saying like,
You just
"Oh,
scored a bunch of brownie points, by the way.
oh, yeah." Well, he was like, "Wow, you have a lot of colors in your painting," and then I told him like, "Yeah, there's a lot of reflected colors that you just have to pick up and see," and then he's like, "Oh."
Yeah. What you have to do is there's a lot of things you can do. Like when I was just doing the stone right there, I'm going, okay, that stone, a lot of time, if it's granite, it could be pretty cool. But like if I go out, there's a stone fence out in front of this place. If I go out there and look at it, it's got, when I wash that in as a painting, if I'm doing a traditional or even digital, I wash it all in one wash before I ever define anything. So it goes a little ochre, it goes a little bluish, it goes a little more reddish, maybe here and there, there's a little more of a charcoaly gray in there. And then I start building my mortar around it. And then I've got this shift of tone because that's what stone does. And then the next thing I look around, I go, well, there's a lot of what's bouncing into that. Wow, the sky is really bouncing into the top. But man, I can really cool that off. And then the ground is warm, you know, so it's, or, you know, it's been snowing. So the snow is going to throw something into it. There's a lot of green. Oh, there's a big blast of green over there with the sun going through it. What is that green? What does green foliage or any foliage basically do, especially leaves and things like that? What does it do in nature? It gives you stage lighting. That is colored. That's green colored gels. Those are translucent gels that's now the sunlight's coming through and it's a gel like a stage light. If you want to start thinking of it that way, right?
Mhm.
And now I'm going, now I got some stuff going. And then I just look deep and go, what temperature are those trees? They're brown. Everybody's going to go, they're brown. What temperature brown are they? They're an orangey brown. They're a purpley brown. I was painting the other day in the snow and the tree was a real, just beautiful, warm gray. Because I kept looking at it and go, it's a warm gray. Like it's just a warm gray. So a little
Yeah.
blue, little brilliant orange, nail it, right? and I'm looking for those temperature shifts. I'm trying to understand, where can I play with temperature a little bit? Where can I shift the temperature a little bit? And that's really what I'm talking about. That's what starts to give you vibrancy. Okay, does that make sense?
Mhm.
Oh, here they are. Okay, so let's look at some of these guys, because these just speak to craft and color. So NC Wyeth, right?
Mhm.
I mean, he's NC Wyeth. You know what I mean? So he's a god and all that. Leyendecker, great draftsmanship. Also, I mean, look at the design of this stuff.
Man, I want to go see his stuff. There's a museum outside of San Francisco that's got one.
Stockton,
Oh, really?
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
the Hagen Museum.
Yep.
They've
Yeah.
also got Maxfield Parrish.
Oh.
They've got Leyendecker. They've got, I've been trying to get out there too. Look at the design of this shirt. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they had a show at Fullerton Museum years ago. And the one thing I came away from, because I mean, it was mind blowing. It was all Leyendecker. And I came away from that going, holy shit. Like, we all look at him as this monster illustrator. He was a monster designer. He was a monster graphic designer. He was a monster letterer. He was a monster everything. He was a monster painter. He was insanely good. Okay. And then look at how every inch of this illustration is super designed. You know what I mean? Look at this kid's hair. And he do these chiseled strokes back here. He's just such a badass. And then look at this thing. Holy shit. Look at the baby up here.
Is that Leyendecker as well?
Yeah. You can tell by the brush strokes. Look at the brush
Yeah,
strokes.
that's what I saw. I was like, that looks like Leyendecker's
Yeah.
strokes.
But holy crap. You know what I mean? Look at that. Talk about design. You know what I mean? Look at that. Look at the perfect, like, bronzy color.
Mhm.
Perfect highlights. Like, he didn't overdo it. Then his cool signature here. The thing I think is so interesting about this is just how every single, like, quarter inch of it is just hyper designed. I think this is Cody Whitmore, I think. Just real simple. I mean, not simple, but you know what I mean, right? Great design. Okay. Great type, great layout, all that. And then this is a close-up of another Leyendecker.
I love that painting too.
Look at that cool. Look at that cool right there.
Mhm.
That's just straight bam. That's not even, that's boom, like mixing exact temperature and value. Bam, there it is. That's opaque paint. That's not, you know, and then he put it here. And then he bounced it all over the place. Then he gets this pale green. It's just, I mean, I can go on and on about this. Another, this is one I, you know, super idealized guys, paints them almost like porcelain. You know what I mean? And then look, this is something I always try and tell students. So when I say this, this is what I'm talking about. Gold stuff can either go sort of burnt sienna or sometimes it'll go green. He's going from burnt sienna into that gold green. Do you see that?
Yeah.
Right? Temperature shift. Why? It looks cool. It looks cool. Plus, there's a lot of warmth in here. So look at how that, and then he even cooled it off even more right there. He added a little blue to it. So what does it do? It just gives you that relief from all that warmth with that fresh little pop of cool, right?
Mhm.
And then, you know, back to NCY. Now, here's the other thing with Leyendecker, which I always go, here's what makes you want to shoot yourself. Or makes me want to, oh, I want to see that one. Hang on. These are great just for design. Look at how his jacket is basically two values.
Yeah.
That's badass. Okay. That is badass work right there. Okay. Close up of Leyendecker again. Even his brush strokes were designed.
I love that hair.
I know, I do too. That's his, I think these are Arrow shirt collars. That was the model
Yeah.
for that was his boyfriend. Okay, there's that close up of a hand. Look at that brushwork, how designed it is. Do you understand why I keep harping on design?
Mhm.
Mhm.
You ain't got shit. If you don't have design, you don't have anything. Okay. And then another great, just look, 2 values, no value almost in here.
It's the same value as the dark on her shirt.
Yeah.
Like her shadow, it's the same color.
Yeah. It looks like it. Yeah.
Man.
It's tying things together. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's just tying everything together. And these dudes knew exactly what they're doing. There's no accidents here. I mean, there's probably happy accidents, but. And then this one I just love because this is a style of illustration you don't see as much anymore. Hang on. There. Look at that. That's straight up bitchin' painting. You know what I mean? That's gouache, by the way.
Oh.
Or more than likely it's gouache, I think. Yeah, it looks like gouache. Could be oil, but it looks like gouache to me.
What made him do that streak of green on his forehead?
He's cooling it off.
Oh.
And he's also, he can justify that because he's got all this green down here. So you can kind of loosely say, it's bouncing around a little bit. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And it works. It's fine. You know what I mean? You could cool off. This is probably, it's not really that green. He could have cooled this off a little bit with that green.
There's a
Craziest thing is I didn't even see it until Candace pointed it out.
That's
Like,
what I'm
it doesn't-
saying.
Yeah, it doesn't even stand out if you're like, unless you're like
Yeah.
seriously looking for it.
And then look how, and I always do the same thing. I always orange out that ear like that. I always do that because the light passes through your ear, it gets very orange. Okay. And that way I can also separate it from the nose because I'll warm up the nose a little bit with a little bit of red. Then I'll warm this up with a little bit of orange. It's just, again, it's like leaves, all that light coming through it. And it helps me to separate the areas of the face, right?
Mhm.
And then all this badass brushwork on her. Look at her legs showing through there. And he's just like, because whoever commissioned this probably goes, hey man, we need that by tomorrow. Hey man, it's 5 o'clock. I don't know, we need it by tomorrow. And he just goes in there, you know?
Mhm.
Cody Whitmore, man. Look at that. That's some cool stuff right there. Okay. And then this is the part that always makes me want to shoot myself. Let's see if I can find it. These are Leindecker's sketches.
The heck?
That's his sketches, man.
That looks like a finished painting.
Look at that.
The heck?
Yeah.
And then look at how he did the hand a couple of different times to figure out the temperatures.
Mm.
See that? Look at that. See, and this is what you have to understand. You look at these things and you go, oh, they just whipped that out. No, they didn't. They did a ton of work, man, before they ever got to that finish. Beautiful, just sketchbook drawing. I think that's something I like to do too, or I just go, I'm just doing observational. I'm not pushing anything. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing that. Just want to try and capture something, maybe an emotion or a moment or an action or something like that. That to me captures very much like a simple little moment that I think is really a beautiful thing. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Look, then he goes, well, maybe the hand should go out here a little bit,
Mm.
which he's
So
right. by
he
the way.
would have had that hand sketched out before, and then he painted over with the current hand. Or
No, he probably might have painted this and then went, I think I need to move it out here and, and drew the hand over here. And then went
Oh.
over and painted it.
What is the grid that he's using? Is that because I don't know, like the grid, what does that do?
It's just so you can transfer it visually. So if like his reference, you do the same grid on the reference, only at a different scale. And then you just know everything to place in those grids. You never learned that?
No, I was just told you just draw what you see, and all of the
I never,
transferring stuff
they
happens in
usually
your
teach you,
brain.
they usually teach you a grid in like basic drawing. I always hated it. I don't like it. But I mean, it's a
I never did.
legitimate way of working though.
I
I
don't
mean,
know.
this-
It feels kind of stale. Like when people do that, they try to find all the marks, and
I
then
know, but then
like they
remember
ended up.
most of the people you're seeing who are doing it aren't that experienced yet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't like doing this because if I do this, it will make my work all stiff. It's just not the way I work. But I mean, for Leyendecker, it worked, obviously. You know what I mean? Or Leyendecker might have just been like doing small sketches and then gridding his own sketches and then transferring that. Here's another one working out this. Drawing, working out, where he's working out all these folds. Arrow shirt collar, guys.
Nice.
Look at those gloves.
Hmm.
I think this Arrow shirt collar guy became like a big sensation because he was like super good looking. And another one. And look how he thinks about his brush strokes. He always uses chiseled brush strokes. Look. He even designed the teeth cool
Mhm.
in that hand. Anyway, okay, so that's what we want to talk about. And I want to do more of this, you guys, but I like it when it's driven by you guys. Okay, and this was. Does that make sense?
Mm. Mhm.
I like it when you guys go, hey, what about this? Or what about that? You know,
So like bring in references that we see.
whatever you want,
Okay.
you know, and if I, you know, and I'll go over it a little bit, but if it's something like it's a big idea, because I don't remember who brought this up. I think it was Benton or something. Goes, hey, well, what about this lighting? Well, what about it? You know what I mean? And if you didn't know all this, I want to make sure you do know it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this was a huge help. Like,
Okay, good.
see, like just a couple of those, you were like, oh yeah, I wouldn't do that. I just do this, and it's like, oh my gosh, okay.
But what is that?
Now, so like that mushroom, like the mushroom in the front, you were asking, you know, what does everybody do? Everybody puts it in that black silhouette,
Mhm.
and from what you did to it, like that made me immediately realize I might use that black silhouette as like my thumbnail layout. Like,
Sure.
okay, I'm gonna put something here in the front,
Sure.
but now I know it's got to be a higher. So it's either got to be a darker value or it's got to be a higher saturation or like a higher value. So
Yeah. Well, those are three things you can do.
yeah. So I don't just need to have that dark value. I can push it in other directions
Yeah.
to get the same effect.
Yeah. And look at what you're looking at. So what the reason I thought of that is because I'm looking at that space and you're going, okay, it's very atmospheric in here. It's got a lot of mist. So that means everything that's going back is going to keep gradually desaturating color, which means is now I can use that and go, well, as it gets forward, and it's going to get more colorful as it gets forward anyway. But if I pop those saturations a little bit right there, that is going to pop like crazy because everything going backwards is going gray. So I'm using that to pull it forward. And people always think it's got to be value to pull it forward. Well, if you go out in nature doesn't always go, hey, everything in the foreground is black. No, it isn't. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then another thing, like I just saw it out the window the other night. And this is how now at this point, this is how I learn all this stuff. I just look at nature and stuff, right? Or, you know, whatever, lighting effects or whatever. But there's we get really beautiful light out of the back. And there was this big shrub or whatever it is, tree, I think it was, in the foreground, really light. And I'm going, wow, that's cool how that thing is so close, but it's so light. And I'm looking at the lighting going, there's no light hitting it. Why is it doing that? And then I realized just from the way the lighting was, there's as you go back out there, because it's just forest or whatever, there's a lot of trees back there and they're dark. So this thing in the foreground just had a little lighter value, but all that dark around it really popped it. So it looked like it was really, really light and really colorful because it was surrounded by a lot of fairly gray, greenish shrubbery and all its trees and stuff, and it popped it forward, just naturally, just by going desaturated, saturated, and a little lighter in value because it was just a lighter in value plant. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So then I catalog that. I go, I
I-
can use that.
I
You know-
think before tonight, I would not have understood that, but like seeing that one picture is like, okay, that clicked it.
Yeah, that's all you got to do. All you got to do is unclick it. And then now, not just that, because that's not just about that. What that's about now is start thinking about all the different ways you can do that.
Yeah.
What other ways can I use to do that? How many other ways can I use to show atmosphere and depth? How many different ways can I do that? And then there's, easier ones where I might go, I'm going to put I don't know, some object sitting here in the foreground. What does everybody do? They go dark. Well, if I got light coming from up here, maybe if I make that, it's an old pan or something, and now it's going to throw a bunch of warmth into that foreground object. Maybe I'll even get a real sheen on it. So it just looks really cool, and it's boom, and it pops right in the foreground. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because it doesn't always have to be a light source. It could, that's a light source, but it's a reflected light source. Or it's an anodized green bicycle, it's super reflective, but it's an unnatural green because it's anodized, or some object like that. And at the same thing, sun's hitting it. Now I can throw some kind of artificially green in there, and boom, it's really going to pull because all of a sudden you got this splash of this sort of alien color in there. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So start looking, and what you got to do is just, as you're walking around through the world, catalog all the time in a sketchbook, in your mind. And I think the sketchbook trains your mind to catalog. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It trains your mind to do that, because ever since I started doing that, I cannot shut that off. My girlfriend actually just told me last night, basically, she goes, you never stop talking about this, ever. And she was basically going, you need to stop talking about this. And I'm like, hey, man, I go, you talk about work all the time too. You know what I mean? Oh yeah, but I go, but nothing. This is what I'm into. You know what I mean? I can't help it. I can't help it. It's what I do. But ever since I turned that, whatever that is on in my brain, I can't stop doing it. As I go through the world, I'm just constantly looking at color and light and color and light. And wow, look at the way that reflects into that. And if it's anything good, I go, ooh, I'll take that one. And I throw it in my toolbox, and then I stand there and figure it out. Why is it happening? Oh, there's that green thing over there, and there's sky's blue. Oh, I get it. I get what's going on. That's hitting that, and it's kind of affecting that, and I figure it out. I don't just sit there and go, oh, that's cool. There's that weird green pop on that thing. I got to know why it does that. Otherwise, I can't just pull out on my head and use it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Or even if I'm plein air painting, I can't just go, I want to throw that idea in here, but if I understand it, I can. Does that make sense?
Like,
I
do you
see what
think
you
we'd be
just said.
doing this more often?
Huh?
Do you think we'd be doing this more often?
Doing what?
These conversations.
Yes.
Like critiquing things that,
Yes.
might help us?
Yes. That's what I just said. If you guys have ideas for this, because somebody else thought of this, I didn't. But it's a great subject. Okay. Really great subject. And I like going down the rabbit hole of two things, especially in this class, more in this class than any other class. I like going down the rabbit hole of, we're talking about illustrating an idea, a story, whatever. Okay. So we have to go down that conversational path, but I'm big on technique. Okay. And I love going down the rabbit hole of technique. And I also want to make sure that you guys really understand, picture making, I guess you could call it, right? Whether it doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter if it's comic books, graphic novels, entertainment design, illustration, book illustration. It doesn't matter. It's all picture making. Okay. So I want to make sure that you understand the mechanics of it. Because if you don't understand the mechanics, you got to have the mechanics. Okay. Otherwise you can't realize what's in your head. And if you can't realize what's in your head, I find that very frustrating. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like if I hadn't gone down this path, I would be one angry, probably alcoholic, failure. I bet you,
In the club.
because I had to go down this path. I just had to, I had to figure it all out. You know what I mean? And then once I got hooked, got into it, then I go, man, I want to know how to do everything around picture making and that kind of stuff. Like I want to understand it from the foundation up, and then I can go do what I want to do. You know what I mean? And then I'll have options, and then I can decide really what I want to do and all that sort of thing. But that was key to me, was understanding everything and understanding. I don't want just somebody to go, hey man, you look at this cool painting I did. And it's like, well, I know, but I don't know how you did it. I don't understand your thinking. I need to know your thinking. And I like going down that rabbit hole of thinking and yeah, looking at different pieces and things like that and going, wow, that's amazing. Here's why it's amazing. So on and so forth. So yes, I would like to do this probably periodically. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Yeah.
So yes, bring up subject matter and we'll do it. Okay.
And do you think maybe some of us can like put in like a few of our other works?
Absolutely.
Like not me per se, because I don't do a lot of things I should do. But you know,
Yes.
like
Yes.
feel
One
like-
thing I always say about this, you know, maybe you're doing something in another class and you're going, I don't know, what do you think? You know, what do you think? Take a look at it. You know, sure, I'll look at it. Especially if there's a lot of value for the class, I might come in here and go, look, we could put this reflected light in here. We could do this. We can do this, and maybe darken that a little bit and do this. And wow, it looks better. I mean, I do it all the time in my Friday class, and it's really fun to do because you just do a couple of things on it, and all of a sudden it's like, wow, that looks pretty cool. And it's like, yeah, but I didn't do that much, did I? It's just knowledge. It's like, it's knowledge. That's, you know, it's like, I'm not doing a lot. I'm just going, hey, you need a little cool back there, and you need maybe some, break the trees up a little bit and do this and put a pattern on that dragon, and boom, it looks better. It's not that much stuff. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? Just that
Yeah.
thing we just looked at, that Benton was talking about, I didn't hardly do anything to that. I mean, I spent before class, I think I spent maybe 5 minutes on that. Because I just want to have something that, you know, I can speak to. But I mean, it took 5 minutes or something, you know, it's not a lot of stuff. And by the way, whoever painted that, it's not like I'm saying that's a terrible painting. What I was saying is that it just doesn't have very much interesting lighting or you know, and that sort of thing. That's all, right? And I'm just trying to go, you know, with that one, I'm not going, oh, it's a horrible painting. I'm just going, it's just sort of devoid of color. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I feel like seeing what other people in the class is doing like would probably help, because it's like we're on kind of the same level.
Yes, absolutely. I agree with you. So
Yeah.
yes, we'll do that. Okay, I'm gonna let you guys go. I just want you guys to push forward, and you can communicate with me during this week. Do not just sit on these things. Take advantage of this time because you have time off. Does that make
Mhm.
sense?
Yep.
Yeah.
How developed do you want it by Monday?
I want you to take it like, you know, I want to see it along the way, but I mean, if you feel like you're on fire, I mean, we can always still plus it. It doesn't matter. Does that make sense? I would say I probably wouldn't take it to finish. I'd like to see it before we go to finish. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
Or you can,
Yeah.
if you go, hey man, I think I'm ready to go to finish, send me that one, you know, or, hey, I plus this up. What do you think? You know, I expect these to be in process, maybe one more class or, you know, that, you know, and then we'll go to color, and a lot of you do in digital color, so it's not going to take that long. And then maybe we can go down the rabbit hole of really, the mechanics of really putting the color together. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, you guys. I want to let
Thank you,
go.
Mike.
Thanks,
What?
Mike.
Okay.
Thanks, bye.
And yes, I am going to marry my sketchbook.
Later, Mike.
See you guys later. Communicate with me during the
Bye.
week if you want.
Okay.
Is it-
Okay, bye.